Nintendo Cartridge Society presents NCS Classic Edition, Metroid Other M, Part 7. Welcome to Nintendo Cartridge Society. My name is Patrick Ellers, joined as always by my co-host Mark Mitchell. Mark, how you doing?
We did it.
We did it. We've finished Metroid Other M, which means you should finish Metroid Other M as well before listening to this, or say, I don't care about spoilers, I'm just going to listen to this thing anyway. Also, spoiler for this episode, I'm throwing out a spoiler right now. I don't know what happened in this game.
No idea. I genuinely could not tell you how the story concludes. Or like how all the mysteries come together.
Well, I would argue that the mysteries do not, in fact, come together.
But
right?
I think they were intended to.
Okay, where do you want to start here? First of all, the last chunk of this game, starting with Sector 0 and just going to the end, probably took us, what, like...
An hour and a half, I think.
Maybe closer to 2 hours. It's almost... Yeah, it took a little while, but we played very little of it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the things you did in this game was backtrack.
Yes.
And then two boss battles.
One of which was a boss I had fought previously.
Uh-huh.
The Nightmare.
And then cutscenes. And
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much it.
Right. And the cutscenes, I think we're on record already as saying, are the worst part of this game.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. But also, we just spent an hour and a half to 2 hours, and maybe 30 minutes of it was gameplay. I would say, maybe. Do you think that's right? 45 minutes, half of it, maybe?
I mean, I think right at the end is a solid 45 minutes of cutscene.
Ugh.
Like, brutal. Just brutal.
So I think we are to determine that James, who I think was my boyfriend, is that right?
Yeah, the James / Errol Flynn
/ D'Artagnan.
Right. D'Artagnan. / Zachary Levi's character from the Thor movies.
Is the deleter. I think that's what we're...
Okay, so let's examine the evidence. The evidence is we don't know who the deleter is. Late in the game, we discovered James's dead body.
Yep.
Okay, so...
Nobody brings up the deleter in any of these cutscenes.
So, counter-argument, maybe it's Anthony, because he lives to the end of the game. He's the only person on that team that lives to the end of the game.
That'd make that whole thing too interesting.
That's a great point. So, things that are interesting. Let's start on a positive note, if we can.
Okay.
I don't necessarily have a way into something positive.
Oh, great, because I don't know that I do either.
Oh,
so
come on, man. So I liked seeing the Queen Metroid at the end. The evolutions of Metroid don't appear anywhere else in the series except for in Metroid 2, The Return of Samus on the Game Boy, and that game is all just about hunting down Metroids, right? And they start off as normal, and the deeper into the planet you go, the more evolved and weird they are. They have extra limbs, and eventually you fight like a big crocodile one, which looks very similar to the queen that you fight in this game. So I liked that. I liked seeing that monster again.
So explain to me what so the queen is just another Metroid, like an evolved Metroid?
Yeah, it's like a bee.
Okay, so then how does Mother Brain fit into all of that?
Oh, God, man.
Because Mother Brain's not the mom of these Metroids? Like, she's not the queen bee?
We'll go so far as to say that Mother Brain is not the mama.
Okay.
And then hit it on the head with the frying pan.
Noted.
Right. So Mother Brain, or at least as I understand Mother Brain through this game, right, is a telepathic creature that controls A, Metroids, and B, maybe the space pirates too?
And C, everything, apparently, if
Yeah, you got enough telepathy, like control anything.
if like Melissa Bergman
Spoiler.
is any indication, she can pretty much do anything.
Yeah. Okay, let's try to understand what the end of like the story here.
Okay.
Right? So Madeline Bergman that we know is revealed to be dun 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 MB
An android.
an android.
Who the Federation, including the real Madeline Bergman, created.
By the way, there's a real Madeline Bergman.
Created in order to control the Metroids that they're creating? Or at this point they haven't
space
created.
Pirates. It's not clear.
Yeah, where do the space pirates come from? Did they make the space pirates?
I think so, yeah. I think they made the space. I think every living thing on that ship was cloned from Samus's suit. Except for the people.
But why make space pirates?
I don't know. Because they're bioweapons, Mark.
Okay.
I don't know. Honestly, I don't know. Where were we in trying to establish the... So, MB, Mother Brain, formerly Madeline Bergman, now we know is also called Melissa Bergman. They created this android. She started mouthing off, having opinions of her own.
I mean, she seemed like a teenager.
Yeah,
right? She's like having tantrums and...
Right.
But she was scary because she's a knowledgeable teenager.
Right. And can
telepathic.
And she can control bioweapons with her brain. Like, she is scary. She's legit scary.
Yeah.
And so then they do something to her, which is either turn off her emotions or turn emotions on, and it may or may not be connected to this barrette in her hair.
Okay, so I think you're right. We were talking about this a little bit before, or while it was happening. I think you're right that the barrette turns off her emotions. Because they say earlier in the cutscene that she like
developed
emotions and that they were out of control. So it's like they lobotomized her with the barrette or something.
Yes, which is just is that supposed to look like the inside of a Metroid?
I think so, because it had like
it's like little
three
balls.
circles.
Yeah. So help me here. They give her the barrette, which sort of lobotomizes her, and at that's the point where Madeline starts calling her Melissa, and Melissa likes this because then it feels like she's Madeline's daughter, but her emotions are being dampened, but she likes it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. That seems to be
okay. So then what happened?
I don't really know. I don't really understand. Like, where, because the next thing I remember
Mark came to
is Melissa MB, we'll just call her MB, is releasing everything on the spaceship.
Yeah, that's about where I check in too. So,
and then later, at the end of the game, Samus is explaining, when you're like flying on the ship and there's all the stardust that's taking the form of people.
So dumb.
She explains that like MB isn't really to blame because she's just an AI and she saw how like greedy and awful humanity can be, and she made the leap that humanity needed to be destroyed. So it's not really MB's fault, it's humanity's fault. That's the message of this, apparently.
So, well, okay. I don't even know that we can begin to tackle what we think the message of this thing can be. The end of this game is more convoluted than a Metal Gear game, right? And not as well acted, which is a crazy thing to say because those games aren't particularly well acted. But I mean, playing the end of this game felt like the end of Metal Gear Solid 2 to me. Just in that, like, I can't believe I'm not playing for this long, and they're just like spouting weird, like dumb, unrelated philosophical points at me.
Your very last interaction with this game is another one of those first-person segments where you're fixed in place and you have to just like shoot things.
Yeah, you had to shoot. I'm not even sure what they are at this point. They're just like monsters that are on the bottle ship. You have to shoot them out of the way so you can take aim at MB. So like you've resolved yourself to shoot her, but Madeline stops you.
Doesn't stop you. It's like Madeline shoots at her, but then the Federation shows up
The
and
Federation is
they
there.
shoot her
Yeah.
before Madeline's bullet gets to her, is my memory of what happens. We literally stopped playing this like 5 minutes ago.
Well, we had to sit through like 20 minutes of
Yeah, exactly. So
cinematic
it's like,
afterwards. Yeah.
so even though the game, like we turned off the game about 5 minutes ago, we're talking about 30 or 45 minutes ago, cutscene wise, of stuff that I don't care about and didn't understand.
Right, and have very little recollection of. It's very hard to remember. It's just like I can't wrap my head around anything that happened.
Was there anything you liked? Because really, the gameplay portion of it consisted. I mean, I don't know that we're ever gonna make sense of the story. Did the gameplay portion of it? Did either of the boss battles intrigue you? Because that's basically what it came down to. Was two
was
boss
just
battles.
two boss battles.
Nightmare Again, and then
Queen Metroid.
Queen Metroid.
So Nightmare Again was a lot like Nightmare the first time in that it was just sort of long. I never felt like I didn't know what I was doing, which is that is a quality of boss fights in this game. So like that's okay, but we just fought that thing in the last episode. So that's not like if you were playing this game, if you were shotgunning it all the way through, you would fight the nightmare twice in an hour, and that's too much, you know?
The one mechanic that was kind of cool was like the black hole vortex
Yeah, that was neat.
that it would send out occasionally. But when you think about it, the second Nightmare fight and the Queen Metroid fight, the mechanics basically boil down to the same thing. Where it's like, okay, the bad guy's gonna shoot projectiles at me that will slowly come towards me, and if
Yeah.
they touch me, they hurt. So I have to like sense move out of the way, and then once I've sense moved out of the way, I kind of have to first person target it to blow
Yeah.
it away.
It's the Queen Metroid fight in particular. She lets out 6 Metroids, first 1, then 2, then 3. And if you are bad, you'll be fighting all 6 of them at one time. But that how you have to deal with the Metroids highlights what's wrong with the game, like going into first person to shoot missiles, right? Because you've got 6 of these things, sometimes 5, sometimes 4, whatever, and you have to freeze them and then blast them with 3 missiles. So you have to go into first person, during which time you're totally vulnerable to anything that the other 5 Metroids want to do to you. And there's no, like, every time that I did it and got out of first person in time to sense move away from the Metroid that was attacking me, it was a small miracle that, like, and you don't feel like it's a small miracle because like Samus is really like working hard to do it. It's a small miracle because you're like, okay, it took me a little bit longer than I wanted to for the game to register that I was pointing the Wiimote at the screen, and then like, oh, it took a little bit longer to like recognize that I was like pulling away. It feels broken more so at the end. That like by the end you should be like, yeah, these are the mechanics of the game and they work and I love it and I'm empowered by them. But instead it's like I'm still hung up on this. This still bothers me.
Yeah, I mean, I think we've complained about it since the first episode, but going back and forth between first person mode and the just regular like third person is bad. It's laggy. It takes like too much time. The game doesn't always register that that's what you want to do immediately.
Yeah, well, and like that's one of the things that, for all of the imprecision of the Wii remote with like waggle controls, one thing that I've never thought it was imprecise with was pointer controls.
Yeah, it's the transition between the two
Yeah.
that really messes it up.
Oh boy.
I don't know. Like, we were so positive on it last episode.
Yeah.
And then this one,
Complete 180.
the ending of this game is really bad.
Yeah. Well, because, it makes you. Do you ever feel like when you're playing a game with a lot of cutscenes like this that the cutscenes are like your reward for playing the game well? Like, that you did well, and then the game's like, here, I'm rewarding you with a little movie.
I mean, I don't know. I don't really like cutscenes in video games.
Yeah.
I generally skip through all of them.
Mhm.
So, no, I don't really feel that way. Do you ever feel that way?
I mean, when I'm playing like an Uncharted or The Last of Us, I think those games play well enough that I'm never like, oh, I just gotta get through this gameplay section to see the next part. But I do feel like the game is rewarding me with a well acted, well filmed in quotes, scene that I care about, or at least I'm like gonna get some resolution on something I care about. But like this is profoundly not that. Right? Like you're almost being punished with like, oh, were you having fun with these characters? Like, screw you, buddy. Watch them do some stupid things that don't make sense.
I This feels like such an outlier in the Metroid universe.
Oh yeah.
It feels like I don't know. It like something somebody wanted to do just like as an experiment. Be
Yeah.
like, hey, what if I've seen these other games that are doing a similar thing? So what if we tried to make a narrative, a like hyper narrative game, and let's just make it Metroid?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it seems like it feels like a very video gamey narrative driven video game, right? That even in a game like Metal Gear or like the Uncharted's, they're not trying to be like video games in their cinematics. They're trying to be like movies. And when they succeed, that's that's when they're closest to being like movies. But like at best, this only ever felt like a crappy video game cinematic.
Yeah, like my nightmare scenario.
Yeah.
When it comes to like game stories, which I
Mhm.
don't really care anything about. This is a great example.
Of why you shouldn't care. Also, during the last like 15 minutes, my girlfriend came home and like watched the end of it with us, and I was embarrassed. I don't know about you, Mark, but I was like, oh, jeez.
I mean, it's a real doozy.
It's a real doozy. So, what would you say? Recommend recommend this game to our listeners?
I mean, I guess there's no surprise that this is a bad game.
Yes.
And I think, honestly, I came into it hoping that I'd be able to walk away and be like, it's not as bad as people say. Here are some, like, really redeeming qualities about it. And I do think, overall, it, tries to do some interesting things. I think the problem is that it just fails at everything.
Every step, yeah. Like, the action ends up not being fun with a few rare exceptions. The storytelling is just straight up no fun. The relationships in the game are all bad or boring or confusing or all three. Sometimes the atmosphere is nice, right? So there are some like sectors that
There's some
cool.
sectors that are cool. Towards the end, the music gets a lot better.
Yeah, it's certainly more like involved.
But yeah, like I feel like out of the 6 episodes where we like talked about the game itself, 5 of them we hated.
Yeah, I think that's right.
So yeah, there was like an hour and a half segment in there that we enjoyed, but that's over like a 12 or 13-hour gameplay.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, so we've done 7 episodes of this. 2 of them are moderately positive. I'd give this game 2 out of 7 stars.
Oh sure, yeah, I would give this game 2 out of 7. Are the scale that Nintendo Cartridge Society uses,
right,
out of 7,
right? And stars, is that what we're doing?
Yes.
Are they always going to be Metroids? 2 out of 7 Metroids.
2 out of 7 Metroids. Sure, why not?
Okay, so that's going to be our final word on Metroid Other M. 2 out of 7 Metroids. Would not play again. Mark, would you play this again?
Absolutely not. This is my second time going through it. The first time was whenever it was first released, so I don't know, maybe like 8 years ago at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
never again. That is my promise to you.
Great. So, Mark, what are we going to do next time on one of these things?
I think we're going to play the original Legend of Zelda.
We're going to play the original
We're
Legend of Zelda.
We're actually going to play a good game that people have access to instead of a bad game that nobody wants to buy and is difficult to acquire.
Yeah, we should have started that way. All right. Thank you for listening.
What's a Creative Podcast Network?